the blame for the failure of BSB.
No, I'm not at all. What my complaint about Mr. Murdoch is the manner in which this midnight raid was carried out, where the ink was hardly dry on
We've been round and round this one, and what I really want to know here, Robin, you know, and lots of viewers out there would, you know, how would you control Rupert Murdoch if you had the power to do so?
Well, I think there are two things. The new broadcasting legislation puts a maximum on the 20% ceiling on the ownership between what is called a domestic satellite broadcaster and a non-domestic, in other words, between Sky and BSB, right, shortly. And some similar cross-ownership constraints are coming and have been signalled on newspaper and television ownership, and shortly we would require, I'm not just picking on Mr. Murdoch, I would say this about Maxwell or anybody else, we want to see the position where somebody with a large interest in television and newspapers has got to choose between one or the other, because we believe in a democracy. It is dangerous to have such a concentration of power in a pair of single hands.
How can you penalise somebody who starts a business? Look, just let's put it in crude, simple terms. I'm an admirer of Rupert Murdoch. I say that particularly since he employed me, right? Yes. But he is an Australian. You're an Australian too. Right. His methods are much more direct and, in a sense, crude than those of a pretentious kind of Englishman. BSB was formed by people from the BBC with inflated expectations, flinging money around.
What's your judgment?
Murdoch started a tight, lean ship. Now, as it happens, BSB has gone bust, and Murdoch has moved in that situation to salvage something. It might be Australian, it might be direct, it might not have the pretension of Britain, but at least it saved something of the wreckage. Why can you be grumbling in that situation? And what are you actually going to do about it?
Well, there are 1,600 jobs likely to go down because of this takeover.
Well, how are you going to save them?
Don't badmouth BSB, because BSB
how are you going to save the jobs?
Went with the most advanced technology. It's not a question of me saving the jobs. The choice that the Independent Broadcasting Authority has got to make now is whether they believe the old BSB company has breached the terms of the licence. And
what can they do if it's going bust?
Just a moment.
If the shareholders have pulled the plug out from under it, what on earth can you do?
Well, nobody has told the IBA that the BSB was going bust. Nobody told them before this takeover was arranged. The IBA has got to decide whether it now wants to pull back that licence and possibly to re-advertise it. Whether anybody will take it up is another matter. What I don't believe should be able to happen, and certainly under the terms of your government's act, is that Sky should be able to hijack the 5 channels of the franchise which is held by BSB.
I rather doubt.
Now, Mr. Murdoch could probably live with that.
Mr. Murdoch would fight to the last ditch, or even cry terribly much if somebody else were to have the right to lose money on the BSB satellite.
Yeah, sure.
But that wouldn't make any difference to
Does the
what is happening.
competition policy aspect not worry you? We now, instead of having 2 players in the field, and for financial reasons, we've only got one, and that's therefore a monopoly.
Hang on, let me stop both of you there, because you're trying to impose, it seems to me, Robin, the organisation ethics of the Labour Party onto a fairly rough, tough commercial operation. We'll come back to that in part 2, back in a couple of takes. Welcome back. We're talking to Robin Corbett, Labour's broadcasting spokesman, about the merger of Sky and BSB. Norman.
Look, you talk to me about competition. I don't know how you've really got the gall to. First of all, your party, I know it's learning, but it's got a lot to learn yet. You oppose the introduction of independent television. You oppose the introduction of independent...
You oppose the introduction of the health service.
Hold on.
You know, we burnt the cakes at King Alfred. He was a Labour man.
What's more, you didn't want Sky to get going at all. You've always made that absolutely plain. And the position you were trying to pretend was a cosy little carve-up so that the British people were restricted to 4 channels only.
No, I'm sorry, it's not 4 channels. I'm sorry, the old BSB could have had another 5 channels available, right, on the new satellite.
And you were dragged screaming and shouting into this new world of competition.
I have to say again, all the while that we have regulation,
so you're in favour of competition?
No, of course I'm. Everybody should play by the same rules. That's all I'm saying.
That's great.
Yes, Norman, there's a point there actually for you. We have been a bit too cautious on the introduction of competition. Competition is a good thing. But on the other hand, totally unregulated competition, without proper regulation, too intense, drives down standards to lowest common denominators, and you get the kind of slush you get on American television all the time. Well, now, there is a case for regulation, certainly.
Austin, that's a fine thing to say. But if we can have...
Well, you wouldn't want American television in this country, would you?
I don't think you'll get American television.
Isn't the market going to drive it down to that level?
No, of course it's not going to drive it down. Would we not be better off if we had 20 channels, Rob?
Yes,
would you like to see 20 channels are the same thing? No.
I don't... Look,
or 30 channels?
No, I don't think it's a question of the number of channels. I'm not for confining the number of channels. Okay. What I am on about and what viewers are interested in is that there is real choice, and you don't necessarily get real choice because you've got 20 or 30 channels. So it depends what's on them.
You want to decide
what choice the viewer wants? No.
Why not let the viewer choose?
No, yes, providing the viewer has got a choice across a wide menu of programmes, many of which we fear will not be made. Look, and if I just make this point, Mr. Murdoch is not known for his spending on the origination of programmes for satellite. He was spending far less than BSB were.
Yeah, well that might have been a sensible move.
Just hold on a moment.
Well, in commercial terms,
but look, let me get this very clear. You don't mind how many channels they've got.
No, that's right.
You don't mind them choosing what they want.
No, absolutely
as long as you've got the opportunity to decide what it is.
No, you may not have been there, but Parliament lately spent about a year discussing in terms of the ITV system.
Well aware of it.
What we should require the broadcasters to show on a minimum bit of the menu, if you like. That's been lowered a little. You probably don't like it.
I may not be in total sympathy.
No, I understand that.
Not all of us agree with our parties all the time.
No, I understand that. But Parliament has decided that these types of programmes must be shown a proportional vote, right? All that I'm saying is that in order to ensure variety within that choice, that the same obligation should be laid upon satellite broadcasting. It's very different, I understand that.
Robin,
we don't want game shows and muck only. They have their place on the television.
Sky has certainly not provided that, because it's provided a very good news service, a very good sports service,
apart from us.
Look, the Labour Party's position,
this may be the last programme, of course.
I feel this. The Labour Party's position does look as if it's sulking about Rupert Murdoch.
I know it looks like it,
it looks as if it's saying, we don't like Rupert Murdoch, your boo sucks to you. Now,
we don't like one person having so much control over television
how does that
and
control
newspapers.
arise? How does that control arise? If a man saves newspapers, if he saves the Sun when it was about to go bankrupt, if he saves the Times when it's in difficulty, if he saves the Sunday Times, if he saves Today, and you then accuse him of having a monopoly, what's he to do? Is he to save these businesses and make them viable?
I understand that argument, and we're probably not going to agree on this, but in a democracy, the view which I and the party takes on this...
But you can't expect him to give them up.
No. In a democracy, find out.
Let's be clear.
Should there not be an attempt to restrain media monopolies?
There should be attempts to restrain any form of monopoly.
Right.
But where's the monopoly here?
Would you not regard Mr. Murdoch's ownership of 5 titles and 35% of the newspaper market as a monopoly?
There is open access to the market.
Yes,
there is better access than there has ever been before.
Yes, I mean, it's cheaper, certainly.
Well, we've got the Independent, for example, as a newspaper that's come through. Whether the correspondent makes it or not, we don't know.
Very distinguished columnist, the correspondent has.
Well, indeed, yes. It's only a pity that nobody reads. But there's open access, there's open choice. Murdoch and his newspapers don't try to stop Smith's bookstores from stocking other people's newspapers.
Yes.
The irritating.
Well, I'm sorry. Now, you can't get away with that. Mr. Murdoch and News International has grossly interfered with the wholesale newspaper distribution system, and have put many out of business.
And very much for the better.
Including a big one in Birmingham,
very much for the better, I might say.
Well, that may be your view.
But at the end of the day, the irritating thing for you is that lots of people like to read Mr. Murdoch's newspapers. What would you do?
I'm not at all irritated by that. I'm an old pencil journalist. The more people read newspapers, the better. So
what you would do is to say that newspaper can't be owned by Mr. Murdoch. He's got too many.
No.
We'll give it to somebody else who'll wreck it.
No, not so. What I'm saying is that, is it commercially possible now to avoid this concentration of ownership of, let's take the newspapers which News International controls.
I'll tell you how you could do it,
Now, the Monopolies and Mergers Commission may say,
shall I tell you
no,
very simply how to do it?
And I will say this to you, if sorting that out in that sense, asking Murdoch to divest himself,
I will tell you,
if that puts any of those titles at commercial peril, then I think we'd have to think again. It may not be possible and unscramble it. I don't know.
I will tell you very easily how to do it if you want to, in a way which is very respectable in terms of competition policy. You prohibit him from cross-subsidy. And you say, Mr. Murdoch, you can no longer use the profits from the Sun to prop up the Times.
You can't do that. There would be no Sky without cross-subsidy.
That's right.
Well, exactly. And that would be the consequence. But the naughty thing...
But how do you change the rules now?
In monopoly terms, is that Mr. Murdoch cross-subsidises. And without that cross-subsidy,
what are you going to do about
been a Sky,
it was
Times
open.
would be
Norman's
bust.
point about competition is perfectly correct. Anybody can set up a newspaper. Anybody could have started Sky.
Yes, that's right.
He happened to do it.
That's
now, what are you going to do about it is the question. You can't just sit there and sulk.
Listen, I don't want. I'm not sitting here sulking, and I don't want to shut down Sky. I don't want to give that impression at all. The more
that was certainly the impression that was given in the debates in the House.
Well, I'm sorry about
well, the argument was put it under controls which would effectively close it down.
Well, I know that you heard it that way. No, it didn't. What it said was that to put it under the same kind of rules as all other broadcasters,
which would have prevented the cross-subsidy that Murdoch was giving.
It wouldn't have closed down Sky. It would have required Mr. Murdoch to make a choice between his ownership of Sky and his substantial ownership of 5 newspaper titles.
Okay, look,
that's his problem.
I'll stop you there. You just said you're an old print journalist. I, in fact, was an old radio journalist because I was actually too intelligent for television and I couldn't spell well enough for newspapers. We'll be back in a couple of weeks. And Sky. You make the point about monopoly. How can anybody have a monopoly on what is effectively a 32-channel satellite, the Astra satellite, as it will be in the start of the new year, on which anybody can buy channels? It's not possible to have a monopoly in that situation.
Well, I just have to say to you that as we sit here, there were 5 channels available from BSB, there were 4 from Sky, right? There are now going to be 5 available from the combined company.
Yes, but if BSB can't transmit on those 5, if it can't afford to carry on, the IBA can always relet the satellites and see if anybody else can afford to take it.
Yes, absolutely.
Do you want that to happen?
Yes, I think it's quite wrong, and we discussed this earlier. I don't think it would cause Mr. Murdoch to lose much sleep if the IBA took back that license.
So you want the combined company to move off the BSB satellite.
Off the BSB satellite.
And that would mean everybody who's bought a BSB dish, a squarial, would, without any programmes for a period while somebody else is arranged.
Well, no, arrangements, the IBA has got powers to make arrangements for that to happen, but since you've raised the squarial thing, it's been said that those dishes have got to be changed for Sky ones, and it's not going to be somebody turning up and doing it for nothing. The warning has been given, it'll be done on favourable terms, so there's going to be a cost in it. For BSB subscribers, and I just wonder what the legal position
do you want the satellite? Your alternative is to vacate the satellite and have a period of blank on those screens.
No, you can put a service. But it's not for me to decide. The IBA has got to decide, and soon, whether in fact it wants to take back that license, which the original BSB had, and re-advertise it. I think that is probably the most sensible thing to do. Now, I have to quickly say
that I think. What put on in the meantime?
Well, they can arrange for programmes to be put on there, he says, lightly.
Who pays for them? Who does it?
Well, you could put the Sky programmes through the BSB,
right.
the old BSB channels, actually.
But that's what they're going to do anyway.
I think it's
that's what they're going to do anyway.
I think it's an.
They're going to do that anyway.
No. There are 5. I can't seem to get this into your head. There were 5 channels available. There are not now going to be 5, and that's what I, as a BSB subscriber, signed up for.
There's just a different mix of the 5.
Well, let me just answer the point about the IBA. This, it seems to me, it's got to consider pulling back that licence and re-advertising it. Whether there
in the meantime,
whether there are any
on
buyers.
The 5 channels from British Sky Broadcasting.
Let me just finish. The IBA has also got to consider whether there has been any breach of contract on the part of the former BSB company, and if so, whether that's worth pursuing by way of an action for damages in the courts. Decisions which Parliament has passed to them to take. I'm bound to say that this body is going to become the new Independent Television Commission, and it couldn't have come at a worse time for them in a sense, because it's a very awkward problem and a very awkward time for them, and it's going to be a test of their mettle.
Well, Robin, it does seem to me that, you know, there is something in what you say that it is quite possible for the IBA to say, no, we will take back the licence for the old BSB satellite, and in the meantime there's a period of grace, because otherwise we'd cut everybody off, during which the new Sky will operate through that channel while people go from squarials to dishes, or alternatively say we don't want to, we're going to sit with our squarial and wait for someone to come along with the old satellite. I think they might have a very long wait.
Well, I mean, what the IBA has got to decide at the end of the day is not pleasing politicians. It's got to take a view in these circumstances as to what is best for the viewer on this.
Okay,
and maybe that will serve up an answer which displeases me.
I would certainly disagree with you on what is best for the viewer in that context. I think you're wrong. But let me ask you a general question about Rupert Murdoch and his interest in the press and satellite television. You're an Australian. I've tainted you enough by revealing that fact. It seems to me that the Labour Party, and in a sense that's why you've been such a success in the Labour Party, because you've got this kind of ability to get to the guts of a question. It seems to me the Labour Party hates Rupert Murdoch for exactly that, that he's successful. And that whereas the Australian Labour Party has been able to work with Rupert Murdoch and his media interests, all we've done is sit there and snipe at each other.
Well, I
must now
when
Labour gets to power,
if you're advocating that Mr. Murdoch does to our media what he's done helped to do to the Australian media, and I'm just back from there, I don't want any part of that, but just leave that. Well, all I'm saying to you about Mr. Murdoch or any other individual, I think it's dangerous in a democracy for one individual to have that much power and influence in the media, especially with television.
So Labour comes to power, what does it do from day one to this powerful press baron who also has now satellite channels?
Well, providing you don't tell him, there are powers in Schedule 2 of the Broadcasting Act, which got the Royal Assent last week, already in the Act, enabling the Home Secretary, the new Labour Home Secretary, to write to Mr. Murdoch and say, as you may have noticed, there's been a change of government, and under this paragraph of the Broadcasting Act, I now give you notice that over the next 2 years, whatever, I require you to either divest yourself of your control of Sky or of these amount of newspapers.
If Today is still losing money and it divests itself, who's going to buy it? You're just going to be closing down Choice.
Robin,
no.
Can I put to you a practical problem about
sure.
that? Now, you're one of these fanatical Europhiles these days because you're a member of the Labour Party.
No.
Well, you're a member of the Labour Party. You have to be.
It doesn't matter.
Come on. You're a party that's actually enthusiastic about the common market. I heard Mrs. Thatcher's speech.
You took us in, sweetie.
Who was taken in, sweetie?
Lie back and enjoy it.
But let me put it to you that in this new world, that Mr. Murdoch might well go to the European Court and say, hey, they're interfering with things which are outside their jurisdiction. This is a European matter. I'm a European television man. What would happen then?
I fear that won't help him, you see, because he's breached the rules on non-EC ownership of television, or it could be argued that he has. So unless he does another change of nationality, I think...
Well, it's always possible.
Of course it is. And like Zola Bud, I don't doubt it'll be done in 4 minutes, but... that won't help him. He could be severely clobbered that way on his newspaper interests. But I don't accept for a moment that changes of ownership, either of some of his titles or of Sky, isn't necessarily means they're going to be shut down.
If they're not making money, they are.
Norman and I have agreed that within, 1993-4, it's quite possible under this new setup, it'll be breaking even. Quite possible. And really, much faster than was earlier.
I'm sorry, Labour will be in power before then. It will face the problem before then, and it's possible that satellite and even Today will still be loss makers. You will face that problem. You can't ignore it.
Sure.
But if Norman is now going to start praying the common market in aid of his arguments, I'm going to close the discussion at that point. Robin Corbett, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
And it's good night from me.
And good night from me, but not Sky.
It's so good night.
Yes.